In a world where carbs are your enemy, you need one man to help you fight your battles. That man is Jimmy.
Combating nutrition disinformation and general bull. It's Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com.
You concerned about what keto will do to your cholesterol? Many people believe eating fat, especially saturated fat, will raise their cholesterol levels and put them at a greater risk for developing heart disease. And doctors reinforce this by making a big deal about high cholesterol requiring a statin medication to lower it. But this is half-century-old thinking. Newer research shows triglycerides on a standard lipid panel are a much better indicator of your current state of heart health. These blood fats are the truly bad cholesterol that are a direct reflection of your carbohydrate intake. Aim for triglycerides under 100. Cut your carbohydrate intake, eat more real food fats, and your heart will be happy and healthy.
Simplified short-form keto videos found exclusively at ketowhiteboard.info. Watch it, share it, live it.
I'm back. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another Instagram Live, and we're here with another episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. Here's how you can engage in the content. If you like what you see here, go follow me on Instagram. That's the best way because you can see live videos every single day here on Jimmy Rants. And we try to keep you up to date on all the latest when it comes to nutritional health, especially ketogenic diets, with occasionally uplifting you with inspirational type of rants as well. So, go follow me on Instagram at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, you can engage live in the content, just like all these beautiful people here are doing right now. If you missed the live, you can watch it on replay for up to 24 hours. After 24 hours, pop on over to YouTube. That's where we house all the archives for this here show. Type in Jimmy Rants as a keyword search. You will find the show. Finally, we have the best of the best moments of this here show in podcast form over on Apple Podcast as well as Stitcher. JimmyRants.com is the website. Today's Jimmy Rants is all about the latest study that is scaring the bejeebies out of the keto community. So this tends to happen somewhere around every 6 to 12 months. And with keto being popular in the mainstream, more and more people are starting to pay attention to it. I've noticed the frequency of these anti-keto studies that tend to come out is happening a lot more. I've been doing this since 2005 when I first started blogging about low-carb diets. And for a while there, it was about twice a year, about every 6 months, we would see some bombshell study that supposedly discredited the low-carb diet. And almost always the studies were like poorly designed, horrible. But since keto's become a thing over the past couple of years, we're seeing more and more of this kind of research coming out more often. So the latest one, and a lot of people, a lot of you guys wrote me about this on Instagram message. Are you going to address this keto, low carb, A-Fib heart health story? Because they saw it on Good Morning America and other sources of media. So yes, I'm going to address this story. Because what we're going to talk about here today is the whole notion that low-carb keto is bad for A-Fib and heart health, which is what this new study supposedly says. I'm here to make the case that there is no evidence of that. None. So I have a story all about this, so let's go through this. You guys ready? So here we are. Headline, low-carb keto diets raise the risk of heart rhythm disorders. This study is being presented at the American College of Cardiology's annual conference next week. Keep in mind, that means hasn't been published. hasn't been peer reviewed, hasn't gone through all the vetting process yet. Okay, that's key because most studies need to go through a vetting process. I hate these ones that are presented at conferences and they've not actually been published yet. They've not actually gotten into some kind of a journal. Oh, but let's make a splash at a big medical conference by sharing all about this study that hasn't been peer reviewed. I'll continue. It is the first ever to look at how low-carb diets affect the heart, assessing 13,000 dieters. If you read a news story where it talks about a study looking at over 1,000 people, this one 13,000 dieters, that is your first clue that it's not a good study. Because good studies are not ones that look at thousands of people, but they look at tens, maybe hundreds of people. Why is that important? Because when they're looking at thousands, there's no way they can afford to do that study. A study that is a randomized controlled clinical trial of humans where they're observing them in a lab, randomized controlled, like double-blind placebo, all this kind of stuff. Those are very expensive because they have to pay those study participants to be a part of it. So generally, you're looking at 50, 100, maybe up to 200 to 300 people that they would be observing like that. So when you read a news story about a study, especially about a low-carb keto diet, and you see 13,000 dieters, in your mind, you should immediately say, that is an observational study. And all observational studies do is create a hypothesis by which to study through a randomized controlled trial. So that was the first thing that I noticed, you guys. 13,000 dieters in this so-called low-carb diet study about the heart, they didn't actually study people. What they did was they observed previous data, pushed them all together in what's called an observational study, where they're looking at what happened in various studies and then making a conclusion based on all those other studies. They didn't look at anybody. They looked at data that had been done by other researchers. Researchers found that cutting out grains and starchy vegetables sends the heartbeat off kilter. So this is what got everybody in a tizzy today. And so we're going to address this here today. So let's read the story. Trendy low-carb diets popular with celebrities raise the risk of developing an irregular heartbeat that's linked to strokes, according to and warning from a new study. The low-carb keto diet is all the rage, including devotees like Kim Kardashian and Gwyneth Paltrow. New research suggests that cutting back on carbohydrates can spell trouble for your heart. No, that is not what this research shows, by the way. Again, if you're just joining us, this new so-called study has not been published anywhere. It's going to be presented at the American College of Cardiology's conference next week. That's all this is. It hasn't been vetted. It hasn't gone through the whole process of peer review. It hasn't been published anywhere. So why are we making a headline about this? Right? And this new research suggests cutting back on carbs can spell trouble for your heart. No, it doesn't. And you'll find out why here in a minute. The findings show that people getting a low proportion of their daily calories from carbs, such as grains, fruits, starchy vegetables, are, quote, significantly more likely, end quote, to develop an irregular heartbeat known as atrial fibrillation, A-Fib. And the study analyzed the health records. Here it is, you guys. The study analyzed health records. They didn't analyze people. They analyzed health records. Health records don't tell you what they fed the people. Health records don't show you what a diet is of someone. All it shows is the end result of that person and what their health record is. But they analyzed the health records of more than 13,000 people spanning more than 2 decades. And see, to the lay public, when you see 13,000 people and that they've observed them for 2 decades, you're like, oh my gosh, wow, they've really done their homework. Guys, these are not people that are in a lab for 2 decades. These are not people that have been actually looked at by these researchers. All they are are lab records that they've opened up and they've started accumulating the data from it. That's all it is. It's all it is. This is not good science. And yet they publish this kind of stuff in news articles, making it look like it's good science. It simply is not. Show me a randomized controlled clinical trial of these things, and then I'll pay attention. But until that happens, all this kind of research does is says, okay, this is something for us to observe in a randomized controlled trial, and it's a hypothesis. So you build that hypothesis. This is the first and largest to assess the relationship between carbohydrate intake and A-Fib. No, it's not. No, it's not. This isn't a legitimate study. The heart of people with the problem doesn't always beat and keep pace with the way it should, which leads to palpitations, dizziness, and fatigue. That's all well and good that you can describe what A-Fib is, but this means nothing to the keto dieter. Zero. None. Nothing. People with A-Fib are 5 times more likely to have a stroke than people without the condition. It'll lead to heart failure. See, this is all designed to scare the bejeebies out of you. That's all this is. This isn't intended to scare you into thinking keto is doing all these things. And it's not. Restricting carbs has become a popular weight loss method in recent years. Not just weight loss, getting lots of health benefits too. There are many different types of low-carb diets, including keto, paleo, Atkins. Most emphasize proteins while limiting sugar, grains, legumes, fruits, and starchy carbs like vegetables, starchy vegetables. Not just increasing protein, increasing fat as well is a big one. The lead study author, and I'm going to slaughter this person's name, but Dr. Zhadong Zhuang. I'll let you see it. Zhadong Zhuang. Sorry if I slaughtered your name, cardiologist out of China. Here's that quote. That the long-term effect of carbohydrate restriction is still controversial, especially with regard to its influence on cardiovascular disease. There's no controversy, Dr. Zhuang. No controversy whatsoever. When you go on a low-carb, high-fat, ketogenic diet, some very good things happen to your heart health. You lower triglycerides, the truly bad fat in your diet. You raise HDL cholesterol, the so-called good cholesterol that even you would admit is good. You lower small, dense LDL particles, which are the true culprits in heart disease. You lower inflammation levels that are measured on an HSCRP. You lower insulin. You lower all of these health markers that are the signs of disease. All of them get better. And yet there's controversy over what a ketogenic diet does to cardiovascular health. Do not get me started on all the ways that keto has helped people make their heart health stronger. I have a family history of heart disease. My dad, my brother, both of my grandfathers, bad genetic tendencies towards heart disease. But you know what? Keto saved my life and has probably prevented me from having heart health issues. It angers me that this kind of nonsense that gets put out there that plants a seed of doubt. And maybe that's the intended purpose. Let's make them think about it. Make them realize, oh, okay, you like that keto. Okay, I hope your heart's okay. You know, and even doctors will mock that. Oh, I hope you're not hurting your heart. It's disgusting to me because this is the first way of eating that I've felt great and have had no concerns about my heart health. Considering the potential influence on arrhythmia, our study suggests this popular weight control method should be recommended cautiously. Your study did no such thing, Dr. Zhuang. Your study did not deter people from going keto. Maybe it did, but I'm saying it should not because it isn't a real thing. What you're saying about keto, it's not applicable. But wait till we get into what's actually in the diets that they're considering keto. It's going to shock you guys. Stay tuned. Here it comes in a few minutes. The findings complement previous studies, several which associate, not correlate, not defines as, but associated, both low-carb and high-carb diets with an increased risk of death. Well, we're all going to die. We have a 100% mortality rate. You, me, everybody that's watching this right now, we will die eventually. So those are always silly. Oh, you can increase your risk of death. We're all going to die. So let's stop it. While previous studies suggested the nature of non-carb component of the diet influenced the overall pattern observed, the new study did not. Dr. Zhuang said low carbohydrate diets were associated with an increased risk of incident atrial fibrillation, regardless of the type of protein or fat used that replaced the carbohydrate. All right, so study participants. Here it is, you guys. Watch this. Study participants were asked to report their daily intake of 66 different food items in a questionnaire. So in these questionnaires, they kind of detail, this is what I ate. And they used the information along with the Harvard nutrient database that estimated their daily carb intake and the proportion of daily calories that came from the carbohydrates. On average, in this study, carbs comprised about half of the calories eaten. Half your calories from carbs. So let's see, that's a 2,000 calorie diet. 2,000 calories, and there's 4 calories per gram of carb. To get half of that, you would need to get to 1,000 calories worth of carbohydrates, which if you divide that by 4, 250 grams of carbohydrate. Is that a low carb diet? Is that a ketogenic diet? They want you to think that. The dietary guidelines recommend carbs make up 45 to 65% of your daily total calorie intake. So then they looked at 3 different groups that represented low carb, moderate carb, and high carb, reflecting diets in which carbohydrates comprise less than 44.8. That was the low carb diet group. Low carb diet group. Keto diet group was 44.8% of calories. Let me redo the math for you. Let's round it up to 45 to make it easy on my brain. 2,000 calorie diet, 45% carbohydrate. You're still looking at over 200 grams of carbs. They did not study keto. They didn't even study low carb. Low carb, by every definition, is definitely under 100 grams of carbs. Keto would definitely be under 50 grams of carbs, and yet they're trying to tell people the low carb group, the keto group, ate 45% of their calories from carbohydrate, and it's over 200 grams of carbs in a day. See, the headline is misleading. The headline tells you low carb keto. They did no such thing. No such thing. The moderate carb was 44.8 to 52.4, and then the high carb was more than 52.4% of calories. Guys, this, again, is what we're up against. They are so pissed off that keto is a thing that they have to tell people in a headline that low-carb keto raises the risk of heart rhythm disorders and arrhythmia. When it does not do that. It has not shown that. Bring those carbs down to 20 grams or less of total carbohydrates in a day, and then increase the amount of fat and healthy proteins that are in the diet. And let's see if you see the same thing. You're not going to see the same thing. So if you're just joining us, we're talking about that big study all about low-carb keto diets and the so-called impact on your heart health with A-Fib. And their definition of the low-carb keto end of things was 45% of your calories coming from carbohydrate. How many of you that eat a low-carb, high-fat ketogenic diet, how many of you would say that you have 45% of your calories coming from carbohydrate? None of you! Not a single person that's in the keto world would ever recommend that you eat that many carbohydrates on your keto diet. Maybe 25% if you're very insulin sensitive, but not almost half of your calories coming from carbs. That's absurd. But that's what they want you to believe. Participants reporting low-carb intake, remember, not low-carb, 45%, were the most likely to develop A-Fib. They were 18% more likely to develop the disorder than those with moderate carb, 16% more likely than those with high carb. Dr. Zhuang said there are several potential explanations about why restricting carbs. You're not restricting carbs! This is a recording! Might lead to an irregular heartbeat. One is that people who eat a low-carb diet tend to eat fewer vegetables, fruit, and grains, foods known to reduce inflammation. Whoa. Vegetables. Okay, non-starchy vegetables, I would agree, reduce inflammation. Starchy ones, some people it will increase inflammation. Fruit, oh, you mean those sugar bombs that you pretend are healthy? If it's berries, maybe it's anti-inflammatory. But bananas? No bueno. Grains? Grains are anti-inflammatory? Really? Tell that to the person that eats whole wheat bread thinking they're doing something good for their health. And then all these years later, they get some kind of inflammatory disease that whole grain bread did to them. Nonsense. Without those foods, people may experience more inflammation, which has been linked with A-Fib. So, Dr. Zhuang, what do you do with the reality in randomized controlled clinical trials that shows a low-carb, moderate protein, high-fat ketogenic diet is anti-inflammatory? What do you do with that information? We actually have hard evidence that shows a ketogenic diet is anti-inflammatory. And it's one that has fewer vegetables, fewer to no fruit, and no grains at all. And it's anti-inflammatory. What do you do with that evidence? Do you ignore it? Oh, that doesn't fit my paradigm of my worldview of my research. Okay, that's all well and good, but if you're a true scientist, what do you do with that reality? And if those foods, not eating those foods, which right now I'm eating no vegetables, no fruit, and no grains. And my HSCRP, which is a key inflammatory marker in the body, is under 1. Under 1.0, which is unbelievably good. So if I'm supposed to have higher inflammation, ostensibly from my meat diet, they didn't really say that here, but ostensibly from the meats that I eat in my diet, why is my HSCRP so spectacular? Can you explain that one to me? Another possible explanation is that eating more protein and fat in place of carbs may lead to oxidative stress, which has also been associated with A-Fib. Like I just said, that's all I'm eating right now. I'm doing a keto carnivore style diet with 75 to 80% of my diet coming from dietary fat, and it's all animal-based foods. And I'm thriving. So what do you do with people like me? People like all my Jimmy Ranchers. What do you do with us if we don't fit your paradigm and yet we're exhibiting great health? What do you do? Dr. Zhuang said the effect could be related to an increased risk of other forms of heart disease, and he is going to present these findings at the American College of Cardiology's annual scientific session in New Orleans later this month. I would love to be in the audience. Excuse me, sir. May I ask you a few questions about your research? Yeah, Jimmy Moore, Living La Vida Low Carb, international best-selling author of Keto Clarity, a bunch of other books. I'm just wondering why in your study do you say that the intake of the lower group is a low-carb ketogenic diet, and yet 45% carbohydrates is not even close to being in the keto macros? Can you explain to me why you're being dishonest in your research? I wouldn't say it that ugly, but I would want to. That's what I would be thinking. He would crap his pants if Jimmy Moore showed up in New Orleans when he presented this data. But at the end of the day, you guys, observational research. That's all this is. And here's the other thing. The people that they looked at already had some A-Fib going on. They already had other issues in their health. They didn't look at healthy people. They didn't look at people who could handle more carbohydrates. You look at someone who eats a 45% of their calories from carbohydrate, and you say, oh my gosh, that's low carb. No, it's not low carb. And I'm hoping that message is coming through loud and clear in this. Is they want to call it low carb, they want to call it keto, but it's neither one. It's not even close to being moderate carb. I would argue that a 45% carbohydrate diet based on calories, that is a very high carb intake. Not even close. See, here's the thing, you guys. They don't want to study a ketogenic diet because they know it works. They know it lowers inflammation. They know all of these so-called cardiovascular risks that they're trying to scare you into thinking is happening with your keto don't happen with a well-formulated low carb, and I would say under 10% of your calories coming from carbohydrate would be considered a ketogenic diet for most people. Others of us even lower than that, but 10%, not 45%. Moderate protein, upwards of 20 to 25% of your calories, and then the rest come from fat. 65, 75% fat. Why do they have to do this kind of stupid stuff? You know why. They're trying to discredit a perfectly viable diet. And here's the thing. That meeting that he's going to, I guarantee you, there are a lot of pharmaceutical companies that have heart drugs that they hope to keep doing and doing business with. But if they have a nutritional plan that makes those heart drugs irrelevant, or those procedures no longer necessary, they're going to lose money. And it's so sad that they have put the grand almighty dollar well in front of your health, my health, the collective health of people. And if they continue down this road, people are going to become more and more distrustful of the medical system and of the research, where research will now become a laughingstock. Nobody will believe anything, and we might already be there with some people. I'm skeptical of just about every research study that comes out now, because 90% of them, probably more than that, are bogus. 95% of them are just observational, epidemiological types of studies, rat model studies. Very little research these days, and especially in the world of nutritional health, are good, solid, foundational research done in a randomized controlled clinical way. And the reason for that is they're very expensive. If you lock away in a metabolic ward for 6 to 12 months, say 100 people, you're looking at easily well over $100 million for that study. Because you got to pay those people for their time. You got to do all the things you're going to do to them. You pay for the housing and you pay for the food and all the stuff that's involved and all the testing parameters. That costs money. And nobody's willing to do that. Which leaves you and I, which leaves us to do our own self-testing. And most of us that have done a truly well-formulated, not 45% carbohydrate, but 5% carbohydrate type of diet, or in my case right now, 0% carbohydrate diet. It leaves us to do our own research. And yes, lest you think otherwise, your N=1 of you studying yourself is valid. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Your experience is just as valid. So get your voice out there, share what you've seen, and we'll put nonsensical studies like this one all about A-Fib and so-called keto, low-carb keto. Nope. low-carb keto bad for A-Fib and heart health? There's no evidence for that. All right, let's see what you guys have to say. Welcome in, welcome in. Thanks for being here today on Jimmy Rants. This one's making all the rounds all over social media, so I'm really happy to get this message out there. Magnolia says, it's just fear-mongering. Yeah. And to what end? To get people that know enough about keto just to know about it, but they don't know enough about keto to know that this is garbage science. Alberto says, I don't remember what book I read that bombarding people with disinformation, even obviously fake, helps distract people from the facts. I don't know what book you're referring to, but that's a well-known tactic. Just keep sharing lies after lies after lies after lies after lies, and eventually people latch onto it. We see this all the time in the political realm and other sectors of society. When something it becomes commonplace, it's just known. Even in our world of nutrition, saturated fat's going to clog your arteries. Saturated fat's bad for you. Saturated. And so people now, oh my gosh, saturated fat. Oh. And so when you start saying saturated fat's good, they can't believe it because it's been repeated so often that it's bad. Bonnie says, I was just telling Christine how doctors and media pass on fear to help or to keep my husband and I from doing keto, and I don't want to hear it. Well, you're going to hear it. That's the sad part. But here's the thing, Bonnie. Here's the thing you always need to remember. Follow those people that are telling you the truth. It's why you follow me. It's why I appreciate you as one of my active and faithful Jimmy Rancers. Thanks for being here all the time. But find those people that are your tribe that will not lie to you, and you won't be led astray. Darla Daisy says, I had A-Fib eating carbs, low fat prior to keto, reducing my blood pressure. That's awesome that you've been able to see benefit with this. There's no money in healthy people, says Magnolia. Sadly, no, there's not. Heather said, I just had my annual scan to make sure I'm still cancer-free. My arterial age dropped from 93 to 31. Holy crap, that's amazing. A year and a half on keto, reversed atherosclerosis, and my heart is safe. Yeah, if anybody would have concerns about heart health, it would be me. My dad had a heart attack at 48-50, quintuple heart bypass at 54. My brother Kevin, 3 heart attacks at 32, died at 41 of heart disease. Both grandfathers died of heart disease in their early 50s, and I'm 47. So I have a real and present concern about cardiovascular health. But am I concerned? No, because keto has calmed down all of the key markers that would show that my heart is as healthy as it could possibly be at this point in my life. Val says the keto haters think if they can say negative things often and loud enough that makes it true. Well, Val, I'm hopeful that people are catching on to that and that tactic no longer works. I think in the age of the internet and of social media, as much as I hate social media for a lot of things, one thing I do love about social media and Instagram Live especially is we're able to get information out there that if this didn't exist, you wouldn't know about. Those studies would just get out there and there would be no response because nobody in the mainstream of media would be sharing this kind of stuff. But that's what you get on Jimmy Rants. We're going to share interesting information that maybe you're not getting elsewhere. I harp on studying epilepsy patients and their keto has improved their life. That's right, Bonnie. Crap science, this didn't even study keto, says Dr. Joe. Exactly. That was the thing that got me the most about this. It's like 45% carbohydrate. You can't even say that's even moderate carb. It's high carb. Unbelievably high carb. And then we're not even getting into the quality of the carbohydrates. What kind of carbs made up the 45%? Not going to happen here. I wonder what this doctor's affiliation is. Crap food industry, says C-Doc. Maybe. I don't know. He's in China, so I don't know what Dr. Zhuang's funding is for this study. Life in Pix 50. Oh my God, this is my problem. I still have A-Fib, my new functional medicine doctor who says I still need the meds, but she's working to get all my depleted micronutrients in check. Well, I wish you well as you continue along this journey. Keto is not the detriment to A-Fib and cardiovascular health that they're making it out to be. Keto will lower inflammation. Keto of real whole foods can be nothing but a good thing for your total health. Bonnie says, you're too funny, but so right to the point. Thank you. I try to provide a little bit of entertainment along with the education, so thank you for watching. Maybe we're all just mutants, says Val. We don't fit their mold. Well, there's a whole bunch of people that are mutants then, if that's true. Sounds like all they did was correlate the SAD diet with A-Fib. Well, no, duh, LOL, says Dr. Joe. Yeah, 45 to 65% carbohydrate, that is the SAD diet. Because we know when you mix carbohydrates with fat, that is a surefire way to pack on pounds, increase inflammation, and make your body less healthy. That's not rocket science, guys. No, everybody in the know, in the metabolic world, knows you don't mix carbs and fat. So if you're having 45% carbohydrate, that's a lot of carbohydrates. Cut them down to 20 grams of carbohydrates. Increase those calories, replace those carb calories with more fat, and then let's see what they observe in these people. I guarantee you robust health. Send letters to the AHA. Why would they have this doctor represent these lies of what is a ketogenic diet? I'm so tired of all these BS research. Well, it's not going to stop, C-Doc. And you know that as well as anyone as a doctor yourself. You know this is the kind of tactic that is put out there. But it means those of us that are in keto become hypervigilant. And we share information, which is what I'm doing today on this Jimmy Rants. I want you guys to know what's going on. And why, just because this is featured on Good Morning America, isn't something that we need to all cry and whimper into the corner. Oh no, they're beating up on keto. I'm not worried about that. They can say what they want. All I know is I'm living proof that this way of eating has saved my life. And I know so many of you guys can say the same thing. Anecdote says, Grandma does keto. Since keto, I have not had a single incident of A-Fib since August of 2018. Used to happen daily, up to 4 hours a day. Bite me, Dr. Crazy Person. I love you, Grandma does keto. Bridget says, it is fear-mongering. I have Hashimoto's and I'm 75% symptom-free after 1 year. That's on keto. Thank you, Bridget, for sharing that. Just curious, what meat are you focusing on while you're on carnivore? Well, I'm not doing general questions. Definitely write to me. I do like beef, just to quickly answer your question, and it ends up being 1 to 2 times a day. Kimberly, educate. My dad has A-Fib and would believe this story hook, line, and sinker. And that's the problem, Kimberly. People that are kind of casually paying attention, they don't know that this is bogus. They just see the headline, low-carb keto, bad for A-Fib, heart arrhythmia, heart health, you're going to die. Ah! And they don't know the deeper story, that they didn't actually look at low-carb or keto. Joshua says, day 5 of my keto journey, I went into A-Fib, alcohol-related. Doc knew I was on keto. He said it wasn't the diet, it was the drink. Well, good for your doctor. That's awesome. When will it ever be first do no harm? Well, AK Bonbon, sadly, I think that mantra that has always been a part of the medical industry is way, way gone. Jojo says keto lowers inflammation, and when there's no inflammation, there can be no disease. Nailed it. It amazes me how many people would rather believe this misinformation rather than the actual proof. Well, the problem is they're very open and suggestible, I guess is the word. Especially when it looks like it's an authoritative type of paper. Oh, it's a published paper. It's going to be presented at the American College of Cardiology, and it's got a medical doctor as the researcher, and they have people, blah, blah, blah. And so it looks all official to the layperson. And I'm the kind of layperson that says, I don't care what your credentials are. Let's look at what you did. And if I look at what you did and it was bull crap, I'm going to call you out on your bull crap, right? While on keto, my cholesterol went from 330 to 136, says Keto My Burrito. Lowered my blood pressure pill in half, hoping to get off of them completely. We'll keep it going. So guys, the bottom line in this Jimmy Rants is low-carb keto bad for A-Fib and heart health? If you watch the media today and you watch Good Morning America and you saw that feature story and you see all of these stories out there on Facebook and Instagram and, oh my gosh, keto, low-carb, you know the truth now. There's no evidence that low-carb or keto is causing either one of those problems. None whatsoever. A 45% carbohydrate diet, in no sense of the word, would ever be described as low carb or keto in the real world. So there's no evidence. So in light of that, no evidence, let's correct the misinformation. Be confident in what you know about this and use this Jimmy Rants as an encouragement to keep going on your keto lifestyle. Keep getting those benefits. And please, please, please share this far and wide so that the scaremongering does not take in to the consciousness of people that would be concerned. All right, guys, that's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com, as always, is where you can check out all about this show. We actually start off on Instagram and do a couple of live videos every single day. So go follow me on Instagram at Livin' Low Carb Man, LIVIN LOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, you can engage live in the content, just like all my peoples here today, my Jimmy Rancers. Thank you guys for being here. If you missed the live, it's all good. It is up for 24 hours on Instagram on replay. So go watch the replay on Instagram. If you're not an Instagram type or if you happen to miss it, hop on over to YouTube. That's where we house all the past episodes of Jimmy Rants. Type in a keyword, Jimmy Rants. You will find the show either on YouTube or on Google. You will find it. Finally, we have a Jimmy Rants podcast, which has the best of the best moments of this here show in podcast form. JimmyRants.com is the website. So until next time, we'll see you then.